I played a 30-second audio clip at my boyfriend's family dinner, and I've never seen a room full of people turn on someone so fast. Not because I'm cruel. Not because I enjoyed watching him squirm in front of his parents and siblings. But because some lies are so big, so carefully constructed, that the only way to expose them is to let the liar's own words do the work. And that night, sitting at that perfectly set table in their Chicago suburban home, surrounded by people who thought I was the problem, I stopped being the girl who believed his excuses and became the one who made sure everyone heard the truth. They say revenge is a dish best served cold, but nobody tells you it tastes even better when you've been patient enough to let it marinate. When you've spent months collecting receipts while everyone told you that you were paranoid. When you've smiled through the gaslighting, nodded through the lies, and waited for the perfect moment to detonate the bomb. And trust me, I waited. I planned. And when I finally pressed play on my phone, I made sure there was nowhere for him to run. My name is Claire. I'm 26. And 6 months ago, I thought Ethan Walker was going to be my husband. We met 2 years ago at a friend's rooftop party in downtown Chicago. He was charming, tall, sandy blonde hair, this confident smile that made you feel like you were the only person in the room. He worked in pharmaceutical sales, made good money, drove a nice car. He seemed stable, mature, the kind of guy you could actually build a future with. We clicked instantly. Started dating. Within 3 months, we were inseparable. He'd surprise me with flowers. He'd text me good morning every single day. He'd hold my hand in public and tell his friends how lucky he was. He introduced me to his family, his parents, Robert and Margaret, his younger sister Emily, his older brother James. They were this tight-knit, picture-perfect family. Sunday dinners. Holiday traditions. The whole thing. They loved me. Margaret would hug me and call me sweetheart. Robert would ask about my work and actually listen. Emily would invite me to girls' nights. I felt like I'd won the lottery. A great boyfriend and a real family, something I'd never really had growing up. My own family was complicated. My parents divorced when I was 8. My dad remarried and moved to Arizona. My mom worked 2 jobs and barely had time for anything else. I spent most of my childhood feeling invisible. So when Ethan's family welcomed me with open arms, it meant everything. About a year into our relationship, Ethan started talking about marriage. Not proposing yet, but planting seeds. Asking me what kind of ring I liked. Talking about where we'd want to live. Making plans for the future. I was all in. I thought this was it. My person. My life. Then things started changing. Small things at first. He'd be on his phone more. He'd have more work dinners that ran late. He'd be less affectionate. When I'd try to talk about it, he'd say I was being clingy, that work was stressful, that I needed to give him space. I backed off. I didn't want to be the nagging girlfriend. But the changes kept coming. He'd snap at me over nothing. He'd cancel plans last minute. He'd go entire days barely texting me. And when I'd get upset, he'd flip it. He'd say I was being dramatic. That I was insecure. That I needed to trust him. So I tried. God, I tried. Then about 8 months ago, I met Sophia. She worked at the same pharmaceutical company as Ethan. Different department. I met her at a company happy hour he'd reluctantly brought me to. She was beautiful, long dark hair, perfect makeup, confident in that effortless way some women are. She was friendly to me. Asked about my job, complimented my dress. Normal small talk. But I noticed how Ethan acted around her. Stiff. Nervous. He barely looked at her. Barely spoke to her. And when she walked away, he immediately changed the subject. Red flag. I asked him about her later. He said she was just a coworker. Barely knew her. Worked in a different building. I let it go. But I started paying attention. I'd notice him texting and smiling at his phone. When I'd ask who it was, he'd say, just Marcus, or just work stuff. He'd angle his phone away. He'd leave the room to take calls. He started going to the gym more, 5 times a week instead of 2. He bought new clothes. Started wearing cologne every day. All the classic signs. I knew. Deep down I knew. But I didn't want to be that girl. The one who snoops. The one who doesn't trust her boyfriend. So I kept giving him the benefit of the doubt. Until I couldn't anymore. It was a Friday night about 6 months ago. Ethan said he had a work dinner. Big client. Important. He'd be home late. I said fine, told him to have a good time. But something in my gut told me to check. I'd never tracked him before. Never even considered it. But that night, I opened the Find My Friends app we'd connected months ago for safety reasons. I told myself I was just making sure he was okay. He wasn't at a restaurant. He was at an apartment complex 20 minutes away, in a neighborhood he'd never mentioned. I stared at that little dot on my phone for 30 minutes. It didn't move. I drove there. I don't know why. Maybe I wanted to prove myself wrong. Maybe I wanted confirmation. But I drove to that complex, parked across the street, and waited. At 11 p.m., Ethan walked out. With Sophia. She was laughing. He had his arm around her waist. They stopped at his car. And then he kissed her. Not a peck. A real kiss. The kind he used to give me. I sat in my car, hands gripping the steering wheel, feeling like my entire world was collapsing. I didn't confront him that night. I couldn't. I was too shocked, too broken. I drove home. I cried. I didn't sleep. He came home at 1 a.m. He slipped into bed next to me. He smelled like her perfume. The next morning, I asked him how dinner went. He said it was great. Talked about the client. Made up details. Lied straight to my face. I didn't say anything. Not yet. Because here's what I realized. If I confronted him then, he'd lie. He'd gaslight me. He'd make me feel crazy. He'd tell his family I was paranoid and jealous. And they'd believe him. I needed proof. Real proof. So I started documenting everything. I took screenshots of his location every time he said he was working late and wasn't. I found receipts in his car from restaurants and hotels. I discovered credit card charges he'd tried to hide. I even created a fake Instagram account and found Sophia's profile. It was private, but I requested to follow. She accepted. And there, buried in her photos, were pictures of them together. At restaurants. At parks. At her apartment. She'd tagged the locations. She'd dated them. Some were from 6 months ago. He'd been cheating on me for half a year. But I still didn't confront him. Because I wanted more. I wanted him to admit it. In his own words. Undeniable. So I bought a small audio recorder. The kind you can hide anywhere. And I started leaving it in his car. It took 3 weeks, but I finally got what I needed. He was on the phone with Sophia. I heard everything. Him laughing about how clueless I was. How easy it was to lie to me. How his family loved me so much that it was hilarious because they had no idea. How he was planning to break up with me after the holidays because he didn't want to deal with the drama during family events. Sophia asked him why he didn't just end it now. He said, and I quote, "Because Claire does everything for me. She cooks, she cleans, she basically takes care of all the boring stuff. And my family adores her. If I dump her now, they'll give me hell. It's easier to just keep her around until after Christmas. Plus, she's so desperate to get married, she's not going anywhere." I listened to that recording 50 times. Each time, I felt something inside me harden. I wasn't sad anymore. I was angry. But I still didn't confront him. Not yet. Because I realized something, his family was the key. They were the ones who mattered most to him. Their approval, their opinion, their image of him as the perfect son. If I just broke up with him, he'd tell them I was crazy. That I was jealous and made things up. They'd comfort him. He'd move on with Sophia. And I'd be the bitter ex-girlfriend nobody believed. But if I exposed him in front of them, with proof they couldn't deny, he'd lose everything. So I waited for the perfect moment. It came 2 weeks later. Margaret invited me to Sunday dinner. She said she had exciting news to share. I knew what it was. Emily had gotten engaged. It was supposed to be a celebration. I accepted the invitation. Ethan seemed nervous when I said I'd be there, but he couldn't exactly tell me not to come. I spent that week preparing. I edited the audio recording down to the most damning 30 seconds. The part where he called me desperate and said I was only around because I was useful. The part where he laughed about lying to me. I saved it on my phone. I rehearsed what I'd say. Sunday came. I wore a nice dress. Did my makeup. I looked perfect. We drove to his parents' house together. Ethan was quiet the whole way. I was calm. Dinner was beautiful. Margaret had made pot roast. The table was set with nice china. Emily showed off her ring. Everyone was happy. We were just about to have dessert when Margaret asked me how things were going with work. I smiled. I said, actually, I want to share something with everyone. The table went quiet. All eyes on me. I said, I've been with Ethan for 2 years. And I've loved being part of this family. You've all been so kind to me. So welcoming. And I want you to know how much that's meant. Margaret smiled. Robert nodded. Emily looked confused but interested. I continued. But there's something I think you all should know. Something Ethan hasn't told you. Ethan's face went white. He said, Claire, what are you? I talked over him. I said, Ethan's been having an affair for the past 6 months. With a woman named Sophia from his work. The table erupted. Margaret gasped. Robert's face turned red. James said, what the hell are you talking about? Ethan stood up. He said, that's insane. Claire, you're making this up. She's been paranoid for months. I didn't want to say anything. I pulled out my phone. I said, I have proof. I pressed play. Ethan's voice filled the dining room. Crystal clear. Him laughing. Him talking about how clueless I was. How easy it was to lie. How I was only around because I was useful. How he was waiting until after Christmas to dump me. 30 seconds that destroyed everything. The silence after was deafening. Margaret's hand was over her mouth. Robert was staring at Ethan like he'd never seen him before. Emily looked horrified. James just shook his head. Ethan tried to salvage it. He said that's out of context. She recorded me without permission. That's illegal. Robert cut him off. He said, is it true? Ethan opened his mouth. Closed it. Opened it again. He couldn't lie. Not with his own voice still echoing in the room. He said, Dad, I can explain. Margaret started crying. She said, how could you? How could you treat her like that? Treat us like that. I stood up. I said, I'm going to leave now. I just wanted you all to know the truth. I'm sorry it had to be like this. I walked out. Ethan followed me. He grabbed my arm in the driveway. He said, you bitch. You just ruined my life. I looked at him. This man I'd loved. This man I'd trusted. This man who'd used me. I said, no. You ruined your own life. I just made sure everyone knew about it. I called an Uber. I left. Within an hour, Emily texted me. She apologized. Said she had no idea. Said her parents were devastated. Said Ethan had left and they'd told him not to come back until he got his life together. Over the next few days, I heard from Margaret. From Robert. Even from James. All of them apologizing to me. All of them saying they couldn't believe what he'd done. Ethan tried to contact me. Dozens of calls. Texts. He tried to apologize. He tried to blame Sophia. He tried to say he made a mistake. I blocked him. 2 months later, I heard through mutual friends that he and Sophia broke up. Apparently, once his family cut him off and he actually had to deal with consequences, the relationship fell apart. She wanted the fun, charming Ethan. Not the broke, disgraced one. He tried to reconcile with his family. From what I heard, it's been slow. They're civil, but things aren't the same. Margaret told me they can't look at him the same way. That they trusted him with their approval, their pride, and he'd humiliated them. I moved on. I'm dating someone new now. Someone honest. Someone who doesn't make me feel crazy for trusting my instincts. People ask me if I regret how I handled it. If I think I went too far. The answer is no. Ethan didn't just cheat on me, he manipulated me, gaslighted me, and kept me around like a convenient accessory while planning to discard me when it suited him. He made me doubt my sanity, my worth, and my reality. I didn't ruin his life by playing that recording. I just made sure the people he cared about most saw who he really was behind the charm and the lies. Some people say revenge makes you bitter, that you should take the high road and walk away quietly. But sometimes the high road means letting people get away with hurting you, and I wasn't willing to do that. I sleep perfectly fine knowing that Ethan lost his family's trust, his girlfriend, and his perfect image, because those were the only things he actually valued. And every time I think about that 30-second recording playing in that silent dining room, I remember that I'm not the girl who stays quiet anymore. I'm the one who makes sure the truth gets heard, no matter how ugly it is.